Welcome, everybody, to the Linus&Fabian Podcast presented by Athletes USA.
Yes!
So, how are you feeling?
Oh, I'm doing great, Back is feeling better, optimistic about the future of playing golf. And obviously, I love doing these episodes with you. It's so much fun. And we thought that, obviously, if we go into today's subject, coaching styles, what to do and what not to do, right? Because we talk about this a lot. And I kind of want to ask you, what makes a good coach, Fabian? Like, in your perspective, what made a good coach? What made them good? What aspects do you think are important for a coach?
This is such a great question, and it's such a pivotal talking point, because I think the coach really makes a player or kills a player in a way. And my personal experience with a coach, I had one coach who I really, we didn't see eye to eye. We had different styles of who we were as people, different views. And really that was in my opinion, the pivotal factor that made my career go downhill. And that was purely the change of a coach. And obviously that comes down to style. Now, every coach has their own method. Every coach has a different relationship with a player, and every player is different at the same time. So, what works for me doesn't necessarily work for you or for another player. And I think what a good coach can recognize is the difference in one athlete to the next athlete, really.
I've obviously had a lot of different coaches, and I think I give thanks to so many of the amazing coaches that I've had for my success. Obviously, with golf, it's different because you're coaching one player, but a lot of times you're coached, when you're a junior player, you're in a group of either elite players or juniors. I had one of my first coaches that I ever had that really didn't let me practice with the older kids because it was more important age groups at that time than I think it is now, which the way it is now is better, because I don't think age should have anything to do with your ability to play. If you're good, you're good. If you're not, you're not, in that sense. You should be coached together with players that are of equal skill level, in my opinion. But what makes a good coach for me is someone that is able to identify the way I learn, the way I take in the information. For instance, I need a different coaching style on the golf course than I need in the gym sometimes. And the reason why is because in the gym, I really prefer someone to be very authoritarian. I think that's the way you say that word in English. Where I want someone to have a complete schedule, tell me what to do, make sure I'm doing the things right, tell me if I'm doing wrong. If I'm being lazy, let me know. And then I go in with more of that hard head attitude of just grinding, working hard. That works for me in the gym because I played hockey for 10 years when I was a kid, from almost 4 years to 14. And I just identify with that because in the gym, I feel like my head gives up faster than my body, what my body can handle. On the golf course, I want someone that is understanding my mental state and what works for me. For instance, I need simple, relatable things for technical, for instance. If someone tells me, okay, Linus, you need to, in golf, for instance, it's called setting your hands. It's set your hands, and it's creating an angle that gives you lag in the downforce of the swing so you get more power. Well, anything where what I'm thinking about moving my hands like this, I tend to overdo everything. So then if I came back to a coach when I was younger, I was like this. But when one of my coaches in the US gave me a drill, imagine that you have a triangle that goes from your shoulders down to your hands, and you're keeping that triangle together. That works for me, because you can't overdo a triangle.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Simplicity.
So I was able to get everything to turn together. Then the setting of the hands, I realized later on, I do that in my downswing. So I don't worry about that. The only time I worry about setting my hands is if I really will launch one, which is basically getting it, really far out there. Then I try to set the hands because I get more lag and more force into the golf ball, but I have no control when I do that. So that's only when I'm trying to hit the ball really, really long or over a tree or something like that. So, but then I've worked with kids that really want that technical aspect and are really technical players. So identifying how the person interprets your vision, because you can get your vision through with anyone, but you might not be able to use the same words, language, body language to all players.
I think the one key, and I would say the top thing for a coach, is self-awareness. That is your number one skill as a coach, is understand yourself. If I can understand myself, because a lot of the times when we go into coaching, it is based around a belief system, isn't it? What have we been taught as children? What have we been growing up to know? What would those coaches 20 years ago teach the coaches of today? And how is that different to what it is now? People were different 20 years ago in terms of how they were as people. It was a different style. There's different times. Nowadays, children grow up knowing a lot more around social media, a lot more connected. Social media has its positives and a lot of negatives for the youth of today. And it's for a coach to understand how that impacts the kids of today. And I think, a coach needs a great amount of self-awareness to look past his beliefs. A lot of the time, if you look back 20 years ago in football, it was all about running, being hard, being harsh on the players, shouting and screaming in the dressing room, showing that you're the man, the manager is a man, and everyone else, the players, they are sort of second almost to him, and the manager dictates in terms of what he does. Now, if you look at the coaches, the top coaches in football today, Jurgen Klopp, Guardiola, Jose Mourinho, starting to change his philosophy a little bit, but they are showing a lot of love to the players, a lot of, belief, empathy, compassion. And it's about having a lot of energy from their side and showing still that they are the, top of the pile almost, that they dictate what happens, but they do that in a caring manner. And I think the youth generation of today can relate to that a lot better than if you have someone who is just screaming and shouting at you, not showing you any love, not showing any care. Because ultimately, and what we talk about, and this is why we do the podcast, is the person comes first to the athlete. Now, if you as a manager treat that person with the respect they deserve, then the athlete will naturally give his all for you as a coach, in my opinion.
Do you think you can coach? Because I think this is interesting, where, especially in soccer or football, do you think you can coach the star players the same way as you coach the other ones? Do you think it's possible to coach everyone the same in a soccer team? Or in my perspective, I look at it, if you have someone that is obvious star player, someone that scores a lot more goals than others, work harder than others, get paid more than others. Obviously, they know who's the star player, who's on the billboards, who is on the news. It's impossible not to know that, right? My philosophy is that instead of not talking about it, addressing that to the other players when they get into the team, when you have a team meeting. We'll say Zlatan Ibrahimovic is a great example, okay? He's not in the Swedish national team right now. There's a huge discussion going on in Sweden if he should be able to play or should not play, because he kind of retired and then he come back. And I think it's interesting because soccer is the only sport. I don't know how it is in the UK, but in Sweden, I feel like that's the only sport where you go in and out of the national team. You can all of a sudden just not be there for a while and then you come back. I think my question is, why is he not in the national team from the beginning? Why did he quit? What made him quit playing for the national team? What is wrong with the system for him to leave and come back? And then obviously he's a very, very authoritarian type of player, super confident, right? And a lot of people think that he should be in there because obviously he's one of the best players ever to play soccer, right? But then a lot of people don't think he should be in there because of his the team spirit and all that stuff. But
his attitude, yeah.
I'm just wondering how, in my opinion, where is the job lie here as far as the coaches goes? Because like Mourinho has a great documentary on Netflix right now where he talks about his different styles. And obviously, I mean, his track record speaks for itself, right? But he also talks about that where you don't really coach the star players the same way, where you have to like tap into their ego almost in a way, right? Which I'm just wondering how do you deal like what is your opinion on that? Because I'm very torn when it comes to especially soccer, and I'm not one that can say how you should coach someone. I'm just looking at it from a non-biased perspective, like what is wrong with soccer, or is something wrong, and where is the problem as far as coaching goes?
Yeah, I mean, it's to answer your question, it's a difficult one. Again, every player is different, and those players who are the superstars, the Ronaldos, the Ibrahimovic, Messi's of this world, you have to know how to manage that player, and different players have different egos. Ronaldo, for example, Ibrahimovic, they're very outspoken. They like to put themselves out there. They like to be the shining light of everything. Now, if you look at Messi, he's a very reserved person. He keeps himself to himself. He doesn't try and engage in too much media. So for those two players, it's completely different how I would go with one or the other, and I think, again, that's where the coach needs to be able to emphasize the self, or understand his own self-awareness, and, make sure the player, if you're looking at Ronaldo, he needs to be the focal point of the team. He wants to be that. And the manager has to emphasize that, yeah, Ronaldo, we are building the team around Ronaldo. That's what we're going to do because he's the best player. And everyone, I always say, as a coach, the one thing you have to do with your players is be upfront. I've been in a room with a manager where I can tell that they're lying to me. I would rather just say to me, look, you're not good enough for this team. This is why you're not playing. Yeah. Okay, then I've got something to work with. But if the manager is saying, well, he's played very well and he's doing this and, not quite sure, and is putting question marks in my mind, well, for example, if he says, you've done really well in training, but I'm still not playing, well, clearly there's something going on there that doesn't quite make sense. So if I'm training very well, why am I not playing? So I'd rather the manager tell me, look, you're just not good enough, or you're not doing this right. I want you to work on this. And then I can make sure that I work and improve on that. But you find a lot of managers who sometimes may be a little bit scared as well to give that opinion in fear of hurting the player's feeling, perhaps the relationship, because that's what it is ultimately. You have a relationship with every player. But again, it comes down to managing that and understanding that from the manager's side, I think.
So if we take it into junior players, because, I think coaching is one of the most important aspects of developing as a player and human being. I mean, I think coaches have such a tremendous role and importance for not only to develop to become a professional athlete, but to become a human being, because you spend so much time with the kids, and how you present yourself is the way that if you have players looking up to you, the way that you behave, the way that you tackle issues, the way you take a loss is, in my opinion, the way that the players will take it as well, a lot of times. So if you get mad, or if you blame the rules official, or if you blame the other team, or like, oh, this, and this, then the kids will do the same, right? And then you obviously have parents involved and all that stuff. But, you have a coach that coached young girls, and you have a coach that coached young boys, for instance. I think that the coaching style for women tend to differ than it does to men. But I think that the men's type of coaching style might work for a lot of girls. And then a lot of the guys, like a lot of the girls. To continue watching the Linus and Fabian podcast, go to Linus and Fabian Podcast on YouTube, or click the link below. Thanks for watching.